d'auto, je n'ai pas de vélo, les trams sont en grève. Et je dois aller voir ma petite poupée, et les heures sont brèves. Il y a déjà 3 heures que je balade mon cœur le long des boulevards. Pour mieux me faire voir par les conducteurs.
Hello, and welcome to another Quinntopia N-Scale Model Train review. Today we'll be reviewing a G2000 locomotive in the SNCF livery from manufacturer Hobbytrain. And this is a G2000 model. It is model number H2954 in the SNCF livery. As I said, it's a Vossloh G2000 locomotive. Let's open it up and take a look. So first of all, nice jewel case, fairly standard packaging from that regard. It is non-standard in terms of Hobbytrain, as I reviewed in my earlier locomotive review of the SNCV HL18. It's a different style of packaging than that locomotive, but they're both good. They're just different dimensions, a little bit different orientation. The HLE18 has a paper sleeve. This one has no paper sleeve, just a box with the bubble wrap. Again, in the new Hobbytrain markings and logo and branding, which I think looks really good. Looks modern, clean, contemporary, which is cool. I always like that with the Hobby, that this is not the Hobby of the 1970s all the time. It's a Hobby of now. So let's take the locomotive out, nicely packaged in this wonderful polyurethane, sealed up with a little bit of cellophane to keep it nice and protected. And there it is. Before we look at the locomotive though, let's set that down, get all these little bits apart. Let's see what else we have in our box here. So there's the original dummy plug decoder. I've already replaced the this with a real decoder so that I can operate it on DCC. The polyurethane is a 2-piece section, and underneath all of this junk, the polyurethane, you're going to find some instructions. So first of all, you got a little bit of a expanded view showing you if you can get it apart, and I'll get to that later. This is what it looks like if you can get it apart. Some different views, upside down or whatever, of how to replace your traction tires. I never mentioned traction tires because they've become such a commodity that I feel like they're pretty much on most things. And a price list and part list if anything breaks and you need to replace it. And this, I believe, along with the similar to the HLE18, is an order form. So I will have a fun time sending this to Germany if I never need to replace any parts, but it's good to know it's there if I need it. So let's put that back, put the polyurethane back, and you get to watch a video of me putting all this stuff, packaging stuff, back into its jewel case. But we know we need to be organized with our trains, otherwise things just turn into a disaster. So here it is, the G2000 from Hobbytrain. Or is it? Because here's the question on the forums, going around the forums, when Cato Hobbytrain, or Hobbytrain I guess, I shouldn't even bring in Cato's name into this, announced the G2000 last year. We were all like, wait a second, didn't somebody else make the G2000 already? I'll continue that. So there it is, the G2000. The G2000 by Hobbytrain. Or is it? Because these guys already made this locomotive. In fact, I don't know why I got close up, because I'm going to take this one out of its box. This is a Mehano G2000. It's, of course, in the Mehano Prestige brand, which is, I think, their attempt to address some of the complaints about Mehano quality that have plagued the brand for years, which for people who've been around a while is no surprise. So the Mehano packaging is not my favorite. It's a cardboard box, typical cheap white plastic, white styrofoam. But the locomotive, the actual model itself, and I reviewed this on my blog. I didn't do a video review of it. Mehano, Hobbytrain. Is there any difference? I would submit that there is no difference between these two locomotives. Everything I can tell after taking it apart, installing decoders, it's the identical model. But apparently Hobbytrain got the rights from Mehano to package and sell this this locomotive. So that's good news, because I don't know how good Mehano's distribution or marketing is. They always seem a little bit difficult to find. So I'm actually glad that Hobbytrain is now marketing and managing this model, because it gives us modelers probably a little bit more stable or easier to access provider. Just real quickly, let's flip these over and look at the undersides. And you can see one is marked Mehano, the other one is marked Hobbytrain. But other than that, everything looks identical except for, of course, the color, because it's a different livery. So we'll put the Mehano one aside. We're not going to talk about this Mehano one today, other than say, if there's the same G2000 in the Mehano livery that Hobbytrain hasn't made, and you want that, go right ahead and get it, because the Mehano ones are identical to these Hobbytrain ones. So I'm going to set this Mehano locomotive aside, and we'll talk about the G2000. Well, where should we start? As I said, I've already sort of reviewed this because I have one from Mehano, but it's beautiful. Excellent detail, sharp casting, just fantastically done. This is interesting, even though it clearly has a very large SNCF logo on it. So you'd think, oh, it runs in France. Au contraire, mon frère, it does not run in France, or at least it could, but it doesn't. These are actually locomotives that spend a lot of time running in the Netherlands and Belgium. So, ironically, I just reviewed my last review, or one of my most previous reviews was a SNCB HLE18 from Belgium. This is actually another one that runs in Belgium and the Netherlands as well, and fits in with generally a geographic area of the world I like to model, which is the northern France, Benelux, northern Germany area, which is really exciting from a railroad point of view. Although I also like a lot of Italy stuff, and I'm starting to like more Spanish stuff, but that's not what this review is about. So it's an SNCF locomotive that does not run in France. I'm actually trying to figure out exactly what the correct terminology is. As you know, the SNCF calls everything BB 66,000, CC 72,000, and so on. It always identifies its locomotives by its trucks, and then a 5, 6, or even 7-digit numerical designation. The G2000, I'm not sure what they call it. It's not officially called the BB2000, I don't think. I couldn't find any information on Wikipedia, but anyway, I'm calling it a BB2000 or G2000 just to keep it simple. So, great looking locomotive, excellent detail. My one complaint, and it's a big one, it's a doozy of this locomotive, is installing the DCC decoder was a PAIN pain. And the reason for that is not that installing the decoder is the hard part, but taking off all the stuff you got to take off. Now, the problem I have, the instructions don't give you any good starting point for how to actually take apart the chassis or remove the chassis, or what parts of the chassis need to be removed to actually get to the NEM 651 plug to swap out the dummy decoder with a real decoder. There's no information on this. So if you have one of these and you're going to digitize it, I would use a search engine and search for Hobbytrain or Mehano G2000 decoder installs, and find every piece of information you can on it from the hobbyist community to find out how to do it, because you can actually damage it, the body, pretty well. I actually, when I did it, so the trick here, how you do it, if I recall, it's been a couple of weeks now, and I may not remember this exactly. I took photos, which I'm going to share and show you some of the steps in my process. Alright, so here we are ready for the sound check on the Hobbytrain / Mehano SNCF G2000. Ambient decibels in here, without me talking, is about 6 to 9 decibels depending on whether or not a car is going by in the background. So I apologize for this very unscientific, uncontrolled experiment, but I think you guys get the idea that this is the best us amateurs can do. Here we go, up to 10 volts. Interesting, it has quite a range. It seems to go from a low of 22 all the way up to 29 at 10 volts. That's a pretty high range of soft to loud. I don't know if it's the way it's sitting on the rollers, could be the decoder I have installed. It's very interesting. I'll be quiet and let's see what else it does, and then I'll move it up to 15 volts and see what happens to the sound. .33, 34, very respectable, right in line with where you'd expect a lot of modern locomotives and model trains in this scale to work at in terms of their ambient sound that they put out. Nice work, not bad at all. And now it is time for the review of the Hobbytrain G2000 in the SNCF livery, using my own standardized but very much my own system of ranking and rating locomotives on these reviews and reports. So let's get down to it. How do we rank this one? So in terms of appearance, I'm going to give this Hobbytrain / Mehano locomotive really high scores. I think they did an outstanding job. It looks beautiful. It gets a 5. In terms of performance, how does it do? Well, so far I have no complaints. It runs beautifully. I've got a couple hours of running time and there's been no problems. I'll give it another 5. How about conversion? What a headache. What a nightmare. Everything you hate about the idea of converting a DCC locomotive that's supposed to be plug-in ready, this one fulfills it with its complicated, unclear, undocumented process of getting to that chip by taking off the running boards and the walkways and the irons, and it's just a nightmare. I'm going to give it a 2 there. It's bad news. In terms of cost, it's certainly not cheap, but it's also not overly pricey. It gets a 4. So we have a total score of 16 of the 4 things I ranked. That means it's a total of 4. Interesting. A lot of my locomotives get 4 these days. That means I'm probably not grading very hard, but I am not giving this one any bonus points because really it's a Mehano's production. Hobbytrain's doing a nice job remarketing and branding it, but it looks good. I'm glad they're getting new schemes out in this locomotive. Good to see the SNCF. So a 4. Please feel free to comment, subscribe or don't subscribe. But one thing that happens when you comment or subscribe, I get to see who you are and what kind of videos you post and what your interests are. And if they're like mine, then I'd love to subscribe to you. So let's work together. Also, make sure you visit my blog. I got a lot more information about these trains and my layout on my blog if you're curious. And stand by, I'll show you some video of this train running around my layout, and so you can see what it looks like in action. As always, thanks for watching. I appreciate your views and your comments and, of course, your likes. Thank you very much. Bye.